Hello, this is Pablo with Meditation Amsterdam. In today's video, I want to share how the mechanism behind facing our fear gives you the very power to confront the situation that you're afraid of. If you think that these are helpful topics, do subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share with anyone who might benefit from its content. And so let's get into it. I think that it has become a fairly popular notion that we should confront our fears and that the life that we want is hiding behind the fear that we are unwilling to face. And so there's this whole self-improvement notion now to say you ought to face your fears, and that's what's going to, let's say, create the life that you want. I've already made a separate video with this idea that what popular culture considers facing our fears is nothing but just expressing the fear, but not really facing the fear. The difference between those two is that when you express your fear, you're taking action to show that you're not afraid. Whereas when you actually face your fear, you're allowing yourself to feel the fear. And that only the latter is a move that actually transforms and transmutes the fear permanently and fundamentally. Now, the other thing that is interesting in this topic is the original topic of this video, which is to try to understand why the facing and the feeling of a fear has the potential to unlock power and transformation in that very area. What is it about feeling the fear that dismantles it, and what is it that allows it to transform your life? So if we once again revert back to common understanding in which you express your fear, your mind would think, well, if I'm afraid of public speaking, but I face the fear and I start public speaking and plow through, right? So I grind through the fear through action, and I start to put myself out there, I will become this extrovert, and suddenly my life will become one in which talking in public and doing these kind of things is going to become second nature. Now, there's something to be said about taking action, but what I would suggest to you is that when you do that, you are creating enormous friction, and you are not really transforming fundamentally. The kernel of the fear will remain within, and you will simply have learned to push through that resistance every time around. Whereas what you want is to seamlessly and effortlessly interact, in this case, with an audience. Now, when you look at things from the perspective of allowing yourself to feel the fear, what happens is quite different. You see, fear is preserved because there is an extra added layer of resistance that our mind adds to the original topic. So if you are afraid of speaking in public, there is an added layer of resistance that prevents you from wanting to feel that fear, to actually feel it. And that layer is actually veiling or obscuring what the fear is actually made of. If you circumvent the resistance to feel the fear, and you come in contact with the fear directly, what you will find is that the fear is made up of bodily sensations. Of course, there's a mental story behind it, and maybe pictures of you being embarrassed in front of an audience, for example. But primarily, and what gives it its bite, is what you feel in your body when those mental images of ridicule or whatever are flaring up. So you will feel it likely in your throat or your chest or your belly. There will be heat, contraction, and it's almost this feeling of like you're drinking battery acid. There is a very dislikable sensation in the body. And here's what's interesting about it is that contraction in the body is indicating to you that there is a sense of of lack. There's a sense that you lack the resources to do the thing that scares you. Yeah, so you have a picture in your mind about speaking in public. You have a certain self-image. That self-image that you have about yourself lacks what you believe is necessary to speak in public without feeling shame or embarrassment. And that sense of lack reflects in the body as a contraction. Yeah, so that would be your mechanism of fear. Now, we don't like feeling lack because it makes us feel vulnerable, and we hate vulnerability, right? So the thinking mind, to the thinking mind, vulnerability is number one, persona non grata, public enemy number one. You do not want to feel vulnerable. For survival reasons, most likely. And so we push that vulnerability aside, and we don't allow ourselves to feel the lack, or rather the bodily response to a perceived sense of lack. And so that keeps the entire thing in place. Now, if you allow yourself to feel vulnerable and to feel the body and feel what seems to the mind to be a sense of lack that your identity has, what happens is the bodily contraction eventually loosens up, and you get access to reading that area of the body that you had blocked off. Yeah, because it makes you feel vulnerable, you don't want to feel it, so you block it off. You block the sensation off. Ironically, that area that you don't want to feel is the very area of the body that contains the information needed for you to feel like you are able to do what you're afraid to do. How is it that this works is different parts of your body coincide with parts of your psyche, which is kind of obvious because the psyche cannot execute or gather information from the ether. It does so through the body. So there is an area which we may call the public speaking area of the body mind. And in order to feel capable, you need to be able to gather information from that part of your body. Yeah, you need to be in communication with it. It contains the information to make you capable of executing, in this case, public speaking. Now, if you cut yourself off because you don't want to feel vulnerable, you are also cutting yourself off from the information that part of the body brings you, so you're blind. The capability will never arise because you are not in touch with the info that you need to be capable and responsive to the situation of speaking in public. So what we're driving at here in general is to say vulnerability to your sense of lack in any area will put you in touch with the bodily sensations that represent that apparent sense of lack. And when you're in touch with those sensations, you will be open to the information in the body about that area of life. And that openness to the information is in turn what makes you capable of being effective in that area of life. In other words, the more vulnerable you allow yourself to feel, the more open as a system you become to gathering information through your body from the environment. And that in turn makes you very capable in essentially any area, right? Of course, that doesn't preclude that you need specialized knowledge to do certain things, that the circumstances need to be favorable for a good outcome or whatever. But the fundamental feeling of capability cannot be felt if you are blind to body sensations, because your body is your instrument for reading what's on the ground and therefore responding correctly. Yeah. So this is a way to try and instill a certain motivation or understanding about the fear mechanism, how reluctance to vulnerability precludes you from feeling fear and therefore blocks off the information that the body would otherwise provide you to be effective in that area of life. I hope that gives you a kind of logical reason to be vulnerable, because vulnerability is very yucky, it's very icky, right? We don't want to feel it. But to the degree that you understand why it is in your best interest to allow vulnerability to arise, a lot of power is going to start flowing through you, because you will be making full use of the information in your body to interact with your environment. And that is what effectiveness and actual power are all about. I hope that this is informative and that it helps, and I'll be back with more as usual.